Welcome to World of Marketing Podcast, a Foster Web Marketing production. Here's your host, Tom Foster.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the World of Marketing special honoring our veterans edition of the World of Marketing podcast. This episode is brought to you by veteran-owned Foster Web Marketing. Foster Web Marketing provides cutting-edge, highly customizable websites, marketing video, and strategic solutions custom designed for law firms. DSS, our award-winning software suite that powers our website, sets us apart. Please visit our website at Foster Web Marketing if you want to know more. But today is about my buddy, Jack Grimes. He's also a client. He's former enlisted Army Intel Cavalry man, E5 Sergeant, 1st Army Unit in Baghdad in 2003, 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment, received Presidential Unit Citation for 14-month service in OIF all over the country, Baghdad, Najaf, El-Kut, Karbala. Did I say all that right?
Yep, that was pretty close. You got him.
Okay, very good. Later got commissioned, joined the Air Force, JAG Corps as a reservist, still serving, Lieutenant Colonel. Well, congratulations there, bud.
Thank you.
After I left the Army, worked as a federal contractor in many alphabet soup intel agencies, finally jumped to private practice in 2020, catering to military, FBI, police, first responders, intel community, and families and small business, estates, and cryptocurrency law. As a reserve JAG, I now support a cyber unit. Okay, man. So Jack Grimes, welcome to the podcast, and thanks so much for coming.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, absolutely. It's great to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you.
We've done some cool things.
Yeah, I guess so. You know, when you hit 50 and you look back and
Yeah,
over your life, and military service is one of those things, you got some cool memories to think back on.
that's for sure. Well, I was in way before you. I was at 85 to 91. So I was in, and I was just an enlisted guy in the Marine Corps.
Just an enlisted guy. I got to tell you, Tom, when I got promoted to sergeant, that still to this day is the greatest promotion I ever had and the thing I'm most proud of.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but thank you for your service too. You were Marine. Where were you stationed?
I was in Lejeune. I was in 29. I went to Parris Island for boot camp. Then I went to 29 Palms for comm school. Then I went to Camp Geiger and Camp Lejeune for a couple of years at 8th Marines, headquarters, 8th Marines in the comm center there. And then I went to Iwakuni, Japan for a year, and then back to headquarters Marine Corps, and that's when I finished up.
Yeah, nice. Comms is an interesting field too.
Well, that's where I learned everything. You know, that's where I learned how to code, and I learned database stuff, and I learned, I didn't really know it at the time. I didn't know I was going to make a career out of it. It took a long time to kind of find that.
Yeah.
But that was the basis of it.
Yeah, that's great.
I was kind of geeked out because I was, on watch for 12 on, 12 off, do all kinds of stuff. Okay, so when you were in the Army, were you an infantryman? Is that what you did in the Army?
No, I was cavalry.
Okay.
Which is more commonly referred to as scouts. So
oh, that's pretty cool. So what did you do? Cool. So tell me a day in the life.
Day in the life. All right. Well, when I first joined, it was actually right before 9/11. When I was in training, 9/11 happened. They locked us down. Yeah, it was crazy. They locked us down in our barracks. And the next morning, the drill sergeant was telling us, "Hey, you guys are leaving, so get ready." Of course, it was months later. When the government says you're leaving, you can add like 4 or 5 months to that.
Ain't that the truth? Hurry up and wait. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I was enlisted at that time, and I was cavalry, but intel, signals intelligence more specifically. So kind of a little overlap with what you were doing. We triangulated the position of the enemy in signals intelligence, and then sometimes intercepting communications, analyzing those, and giving that data over to the cavalry troops, who would then go out, find them, and take care of business.
Right. Very good.
Yeah.
That's very cool. And thank you for your service, buddy. I mean,
absolutely.
I was fortunate. I did not see any action. I was in the peacetime, 85 to 91. I was getting out just as we were going over to do Operation Desert Shield back in early, January 91 is when we invaded.
Yeah. Anyway. Yep. Well, when I joined, the reason I joined, I guess people always ask, well, what's the reason you joined the military? And I can remember after high school wanting to join the military, and I didn't. I said, I got to go to college. So I went to college. And then during college, I said, it's still bothering me. It's this thing that you could think of. I know you're familiar. It's the itch. I like to call it the itch. You just have this itch. And if you don't scratch that itch, it's going to bother you for the rest of your life. And so I actually finished law school. And then I said to myself, I'm either going to do this or it's never going to happen. And so I actually joined after finishing law school and enlisted because I wanted to do the real deal. And I told no one when I was in the enlisted corps that I was a lawyer because I figured the drill sergeants would not take very kindly.
They would, yeah. So why? That's crazy. I've never heard that before. So you didn't go in as an officer at first. You went as enlisted, even though you could have gone as an officer.
I could have, yeah, I could have gone right into the JAG, but I really didn't want to do that. So I did 4 years in the Army, Cav, and then, obviously, as you mentioned, I went overseas and supported that effort. And then when I got back, I was at Fort Polk and getting out, and I had to decide, do I want to, stay in or do the reserves? And I chose to do the reserves, and then I also chose to transfer over to the Air Force just because the JAG Corps in the Air Force is a little more diverse. They do a lot of things, whereas in the Army, they also do a lot of things, but you kind of get on a track, claims or criminal law, whatever it is, and you become an expert in that, and you're only doing that. And I wanted a little more diversity. And that's what it turned out to be that way. And so I'm real happy. I've been doing that for 16 years now in the Air Force.
So you're doing the same work that you do at in your private practice in the Air Force? And do you do that for military families, or is that how it works? Or like
yes.
Generals and colonels and all that stuff, they come to you?
Right. Yeah. So when you first
cool.
when you first join the JAG, you're doing basically anything. You walk in the office as a reservist anyway. You walk in the office and they'll say, hey, we're short man. We need someone on this UCMJ action, which is criminal law. So you might do criminal law one day and you come back a month later and you might be doing civil law, or you might be doing estate planning, which I tended to focus on because I enjoyed that. So you do everything. As I just mentioned, I kind of focused on estate planning. So over the years, I've gained some expertise in that while in the Air Force. And then they started assigning me to a lot of the VIP type folks. So generals at the Pentagon and colonels, people with more complex estate planning. So I would help military members and their families at all levels. But whenever anything was complicated, they started to use me in that regard. And that's kind of what I'm doing today, more than anything else.
I have a follow-up question to that, which is, I imagine that that's a great referral source for when they get out to use you privately as well.
You would think so. However, it's not, because the military in general is a great referral source, right? Because I was in the military and I sort of cater to, my law firm is set up. We're called Guide-On Legal Service. We chose that Guide-On name because that's the rallying flag, right? For the military, it's a rallying point. And so we wanted to have that message there that we're there for military, their families, retirees, and all kinds of public servants, first responders, FBI, police. We cater to that. We'll take any client, of course, but that's who we cater to. And we know a lot about their pensions and their benefits and things like that. So we can, we can more aptly help them. But there's ethical rules in the JAG Corps that say if I receive a client as part of a legal assistance program at the Air Force, someone comes in to see me for some legal service, I can't then advise them to come see me outside of that exchange. So we have really,
I'm sorry, I guess I meant like after they retired or whatever, and they were a private citizen, that they would continue to work with you.
Well, it depends. If the issue is something totally different than something I help them with while in the service, fine. But if it's related to anything I help them to, so estate planning, for example, if I wrote their will while they were enlisted 10 years ago and they get out and they want to come back to me to do some trust planning, I can't do it. But if they got in a car accident and they need help, I could help them with that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's interesting.
That's some rule, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
That doesn't stop the lobbyists from coming back. That same rule doesn't apply to those guys, man.
That's right. Or funny. If it does, they don't care. One or the other.
Right. And then I just wanted to go back because I just find it humorous that you were enlisted by choice and you kept it a secret. Did anybody ever find out?
They at the end of my basic training, I got mail that told me I had passed the bar because I took the bar right before I left. And once I got that information, one of my one of my buddies knew about it, and he told the drill sergeant. Luckily, it was at the end. We were just phasing out, and so I didn't have to deal with any kind of uh, different treatment by the drill sergeants, unpleasant treatment. But they were all happy for me, and I actually got sworn in on the birthday of the Army, which happened to be the day I graduated. A JAG guy came down and swore me in as a JAG officer.
Oh, that's great.
So that was really cool. Yeah.
That's cool. So, what made you go to law school and pursue? Well, you went to law school before you went in
Yeah.
the military.
Yeah.
Um, what made you do that? What made you say, "Oh, I'm going to go to law school first," and then I know you said you always had that itch. So, why did you choose to go to law school?
Yeah. Well, law school, right after my whole life during college and even after, I had always been interested in the law.
Let's
For a
see.
while, I thought I might be a stockbroker. I was also interested in finance and economics. That was my major in college. And I saw the law as a great way to combine the two. I didn't want to necessarily be in the financial services industry. I wanted to help people in a more direct way. And so I tried to figure out a way I could use the law to do that. And the combination of those two has been awesome. So that's why I decided to go to law school. And I studied things that were relevant. I studied military law while I was in law school, contracts, finance, all kinds of things that were related to what my end goal was going to be someday, my hoped for end goal.
You knew that you wanted to eventually be a JAG officer, right? Is that
Yes.
okay? So you went in that with that in mind,
Yeah, I thought
and you're
after I
still a
finished,
JAG officer. So how much time do you spend doing that in the Air Force? How much
as a
time?
reservist,
Yeah, yeah.
it's the same. It's the same as a regular reservist, where you've got to do a weekend a month and 2 weeks a year. However, it's a different program called IMA, which means Individual Mobilization Augmentee. The standard military. Nobody can understand what that is.
Right, right. The
Kind of,
alphabet soup.
kind of acronym, right, right. And what it means really is you support an active duty unit instead of a reserve unit. So I have to do the same requirement, but it's whenever they call me. They might call and say, "Hey, we're short staffed. Can you come in for 3 days?" And I'll rearrange my schedule and I'll go in there for 3 days and help them out with whatever is going on.
Where do you go?
I go to Andrews, or I have been going to Andrews for years. I was at Bowling before that, McGuire Air
Mhm.
Force Base in New Jersey. In the Army, it was Fort Polk, but I just got reassigned to the Pentagon. So I start that next month, and they put me in a cyber unit. So I'll be doing
Oh,
that.
cool.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Totally
That's
different.
okay. I got these questions, but we've already gone through most of them, and you did this in such a you did this in a different way. Like usually people go to law school first and then then they go
Yeah,
in the military, or they go in the military, then I mean, they go in the military, then law school.
right, right. A
So
little
you did
backwards
it backwards, which,
there.
okay, but how did your military experience, help you as a full-time civilian lawyer? How does it help you as a civilian lawyer?
It's a good question. And the answer is probably the standard military answer of you gain so many skills in the military that you never had before, right? Leadership at a whole different level. And I think I never really understood the great diversity of people that are out there in our country until I was enlisted in the Army.
Yeah,
I
me
came from
neither.
a middle class neighborhood in New Jersey. I was Catholic and went to Catholic schools, and that's what I knew, right? And then when I went into the Army enlisted corps, I got to see people from every kind of background and every place, and different value systems, different ways of looking at the world. And that has been so unbelievably invaluable to me in relating to other people.
I totally agree with that. That is one of the things that I took away from that whole experience, is the diversity of people that I met and dealt with. And
Yeah.
especially as you're, getting promoted and you're rising in the ranks, and like your relationships change with everybody and because of that and whatnot.
Yeah. 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 And when things are on the line, for example, when we deployed, it's amazing how you can unify with anyone, right?
Yeah.
We in our country right now, we're so divided. There's so much divisiveness going on. But when you're put into a situation where you're at risk, you
Yeah,
will
yeah.
team with anyone. You will team with anyone, and it works
That
out just fine.
Yeah, because he's in the same boat. Normally you'd be arguing. You got to put all that aside and,
That's
do
right.
your thing together.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced? Well, you're still doing it, but what are some of you haven't really transitioned. That's a transitioning
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
So you're doing this. I would also add that, you really have got that presence. You've got that military presence about you.
Oh,
That,
thanks.
yeah, well, it's ingrained in you. And it's also that discipline that you get in the military, I would
Mhm.
suggest.
Yeah. It's a great thing that you get from the military, right? If you didn't have it before. And, I often think about people, we talk about opportunity in this country. The military is one of the greatest places you can find opportunity, no matter what your background or situation. Even if you're running from something, you can join the military and change your life and change your trajectory in ways that you might not have been able to had you not made that choice. And that's an amazing thing, even for immigrants, right? It's a
100%.
path to citizenship in our country that's wonderful.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And you get paid doing it. That's the other thing too, is you get paid well
Yeah.
and you get 3 square meals a day, and you don't have to worry about so many things that you worry about once you get out, once you're in the real world, if you will.
That's right. Yeah, that's
It's like
right.
a
I still
bubble.
remember. I still remember being in the barracks, right, and paying $1 or something for a meal, and it was all you can eat. That was the greatest.
Yeah, man. The cafeterias would the mess halls would just be full, so much food,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
much food. Um, I did some time in the mess hall too. Did you
Oh
ever
yeah.
do time in the mess hall?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that was great fun.
Mhm.
Did you use any military education benefits like the GI Bill to go to school?
Yes, I did. Well, in fact,
You
I
did?
used the GI Bill for my wife. I got double benefit out of my military service. The first one was it helped to pay for my own education. The loans I've had to finance my entire law school education, and they had a program when I joined the military, a loan repayment program that was pretty significant. It paid off something like 2/3 of my
Wow.
law school education. So I came out of the Army when I got back from overseas. I only had something like 20 some $1,000s left on $100,000 education, right? And then because I continued in the Air Force post 9/11, they had the post 9/11 GI Bill, and I was able to give that to my wife, who then went to law school also for about $5,000. So unbelievable, two law school
Wow.
educations out of it. I still
Once
got
you,
a little bit left for one of my kids. I have to pick which one.
wow, that's great. That's what a benefit, man.
Yeah, it's
You
amazing.
know,
It really is. And you don't
uh,
really understand the benefits when you join. How great the benefits of the military are. For example, me now, I had to make a choice a few years ago. Did I want to continue with what I was doing on the private sector, which was completely different, or make this jump to my dream job, which was to have my own firm serving this community that I talked about a minute ago? And that choice was made easier because I know I have lifetime health care if I need it through the military. Now, I don't need it right now, but in the worst case scenario, I could go on TRICARE. And as a small business person, that's invaluable.
do you have staff?
I had a partner for a little while. She just left. She got a great opportunity. Her name was Leah Henson. She was also Air Force, JAG. And then she just went over to another big firm where they put her in charge of their States Department. So right now it's just me. I'm back to solo again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was curious about your experience in dealing with people, right? Like people that would work for you that are
Mhm.
just private citizens and you're,
Yeah.
coming from a military experience and background and you expect people to do things because it's an order and
Yeah.
there's a deadline involved and just you're going to get their ass chewed out if they don't do it on time or whatever's going
Yeah.
to happen to them.
Yeah. That's a
And
good point.
then we got the world that we have today where everybody's and especially after COVID lockdown and everybody's virtual.
I know.
It's
I
hard to
know.
find good people that are not don't have a military background and have that discipline in them.
It's a good point. And I have thought often, even especially this past year, I'm in my fourth year now, and I've been thinking about bringing on a paralegal or administrative support. And I've been a little cautious about it for that reason, that if you have you might have a lot of turnover, and then really what's the value? So you have to get to a place where it's valuable to you. And then, as you were just talking about, you got to find someone who's good. And I've toyed with the idea of going back to the core and looking for a paralegal who's retiring out of the Air Force or Army or any of the services and bringing someone like that on as they transition.
They also have a military spouses network
Hmm.
that I can get you more information about it because we have accessed that and actually hired people from that.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, and they're military spouses all over, right? They're used
Yeah.
to so they're great VAs, virtual assistants, and they can get stuff done for you. So
Yeah, that's a
something
great
to look
idea.
into.
Definitely
Yeah.
send that to me. In fact, I
Yeah.
know over in the Air Force, when I'm on legal assistance, they often talk about the struggle of the spouses when they
Right.
are moving around, from base to base and they go to a new location. And you would think, well, it's easy for them to grab a job. It's not easy because there's so many spouses vying for a limited number of jobs, plus the people in the local community. And so it's very challenging for them to find work.
Let me ask you this. So you went to law school, you already had in your mind what you wanted to do. How did you decide on estate planning and this area of law? Did you
It
decide on
was
that?
because of the background I had in economics and then even some of my work experience, which I haven't mentioned, but after I left the Army, I started working for the big federal contractors here in the Northern Virginia area, like SAIC, Agility, Task, Leidos, those big ones, doing Intel sort of related work. And I did that for a decade and got to a place where I was a VP and doing really well. But I still had that idea in my head. I needed to do this other thing. And that's what I really wanted to do. And I loved doing it in the JAG. And I thought, let me do this in a private capacity. And so at one point, our company got bought and I had the choice. I could either stay in my current position and keep going forward with the new company, or I could leave and they would give us a package if we wanted to leave. And I immediately took the package and I said, this couldn't be a better message to go try out what I've been
Yeah,
wanting.
yeah, for sure. And have it financed by
Yeah.
your package. Right. That's
Yeah.
great.
So I got a lot of experience, both the economics background, my interest in finance when I was in college, and then 10 years of actually running a business, $800 million business with 300 employees, right? And having all of that experience of running contracts, managing contracts and people. And then what's the natural segue to that in the law? It's contracts, small business law, and estate planning, which is what I do. Our firm has three practice areas: small business law, which I would like to talk about actually, because we have kind of a niche area there that's unique.
Yeah.
And then estate planning, which everybody needs. And I just love that topical area of how do you protect people's assets and minimize taxes and let them do what they want to do with those assets someday. We have a slogan, our trademarked slogan at the firm is live long and strong, right? Live long and do everything you need to do to take care of yourself and your family and have plans in place to be able to transfer your dreams and your wealth to them at the end, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's the estate planning side. And then we also have a little area called cryptocurrency law, which is a bit unique. It's hard to find in the law. So I get a lot of clients, surprisingly, in that area where we help them protect those assets and plan for them legally.
Wow. You got to know your stuff with that, man. That
It's interesting,
cryptocurrency. Yeah, I bet.
really
It's
interesting.
something I've not figured out. I
Yeah.
tried to dabble in it and it's above my head.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
definitely unique. It's definitely a unique technology that has its value. You have people on two sides of that coin. It's a scam, or actually
yeah,
this is a
yeah.
new revolutionary technology. And who knows? The answer has not been revealed yet.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We're going to find out, right?
Yeah,
So, what advice would you give other veterans considering law school and a career path here, like what you've done?
yeah. Well, with regard to law school, I think it's similar to the Army. When I went to law school, obviously a lot of people wash out just as they do in the military, right? They just don't finish. And what I found was that you have to really want to do it. It has to be something that you love and really want to do for you to be able to succeed at it. So if you have this feeling that this area is fascinating to you, and one way you can find that out is what do you do in your free time, when no one's telling you what to do? What kind of books are you reading? What are you trying to learn about on YouTube? And if you find you're always focused on finance or you're focused on the law because it's interesting to you, you have a pretty clear idea of what you want to do with your life and you should follow that. So if that's the law, great. If it's something else, you should follow that dream. Don't just get pigeonholed into something because the job came up and it was the first thing available, so you took it.
Or
That's the
somebody
advice
else
I would give.
told you to do it, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So, what are now that how long have you been doing the private practice, Jack?
4 years now.
Okay. So what are some of that's some good experience. What are some of the pitfalls to stay away from in building a new practice?
That's a really good question. And well, one of the first things I did was I tried to read a lot before I made the jump. So I did a lot of planning beforehand. I mean, not an excessive amount, but just reading books about other people who had done the exact same thing. They started their own law firm. And there's tons of books about this out there. And they tell you what are the things they did that were mistakes and that you should try to avoid. So that's number one. Number two, I joined Great Legal Marketing, which I know you're intimately familiar with. It's a great organization run by Ben Glass, especially in the beginning when you're first starting out, because all those things I just talked about, they train you on how to do those things right, what not to do, what you should focus on, where you get the most bang for your buck. And of course, you guys at Foster Web Marketing do exactly the same thing in a more focused area. That's how I ran into your brother, right? Chad was at one of these events, and he talked to me at great length about the marketing aspects of having your own firm and what you should do and not do. And it was because of those conversations that I signed on as a client of yours, and that has been a game changer for me. So you really just want to plan, think, and learn from other people before you jump in and try to reinvent the wheel.
That's true. One of my good friends said a long time ago at one of the GLM conferences, Charlie Hoffheimer. Um, he said, instead of if you're going to walk through a minefield, follow somebody. And
Yeah,
that's what he was saying about Ben, who's
yeah,
already
that's
been
great.
through it. And yeah, there's so many people that have been through this before, and they're so willing to share their stories and their experiences. And there's lots of lawyers. Another one I would recommend to you to check out is Ultimate Estate Planner Phil Cavish's thing. Have you heard of him?
No,
He's in California. But he's got a great plan, and they're actually coming to Alexandria at my place in May.
oh yeah.
Yeah, this May coming up, so you should come. Yeah,
You guys are doing an event
yeah,
for
we're
that?
doing an event. Yeah, we'll
All
send
right.
out information about it. Ultimate Estate Planner, Phil Cavish.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, he's been tremendously successful. But anyway, non-military guy. No, he, went a different path.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is about military people. This is about veterans, folks. Okay, I'm getting off track as usual.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you think this is good? How do you think your military background, you're still in it, gives you an
Still,
advantage over or a unique perspective as a lawyer compared to non-veterans?
like anything else, it's the experience that gives you insight into what you're doing, And so for me, the relatability I think that I have to other people by virtue of that experience. There's really nobody that can walk into my office that I feel like, oh, I can't understand that person. I feel like I can
You can
understand or at least
relate to
empathize
anybody,
with
right?
almost anyone, right? And I feel like I get a little bit of that back too, right? When you're in the military and you're enlisted, there's a term for officers that were prior enlisted. They call them Mustangs, right? And it's because the enlisted
Yeah.
guys respect you more when they know you have been through what they've been through. And it's because of experiences like this. I'll give you one example, which I'll never forget. It's burned in my brain. We had an exercise out at NCTC, which is in California, the Mojave Desert. It's a training center, a national training center for the military. I think even the Marine Corps maybe goes through there sometimes. But anyway, you go over there and you train for 30 days, run around the desert and play combat. And I can remember we would have to set up our perimeter and our tents and our antennas and our equipment, right? And then you'd have the officers come around and they would say, that doesn't look right. Let's tear it all down and move it 10 feet over here, right? And you're thinking to yourself, this is insane. These guys are, coming around and just telling us we got to tear this whole after we do all this work, tear it all down and put up. Of course you do it. Those are thoughts that you have in your mind. But it's valuable because you realize when you're the leader, you need to be able to understand what it is like to do the things that you're telling someone else to do, right? You have to be able to understand what that means. And is it worth doing it? Is it important enough to have them do all those things again? So I think those kind of experiences help inform you and teach you how to relate to others and how to respect other people.
Yeah, I agree. And I also agree that being prior enlisted really gives you a great perspective of that life. Just like what you were talking about, be out on the tarmac 0330, and then you're sitting there until whatever,
Yeah.
9 a.m.
Right.
And yeah, I've done that many times. And that's
Yep.
just so frustrating. And so like it just makes you hate them, right? It just makes you
Yeah.
hate your bosses. It makes you hate the guys telling you what to do.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
Okay, so were there any mentorship programs or veteran legal associations that help support you in law school or now?
Hmm. I'm trying to remember if I use any veterans programs specifically. I don't think so. I don't think so. In my transition, I know there's other things out there, obviously, like unemployment and the Veterans Administration. You can contact them if you're trying to get trained to do a particular job after you leave the military. So there are a ton. There's the Small Business Administration out of the White House, which is very helpful. They even have a sub-organization called SCORE, which is senior, I forget the exact acronym, but something about senior retired executives. These are guys that were CEOs and high ranking folks in businesses, and they'll help you start your own business, write a business plan,
Oh,
think about
nice.
how what you need to do to stand up your own small business if that's what you want to do. Tons of great resources out there to do those kinds of things. I used some of them and they were helpful.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, and I think you've kind of already asked, this has been asked and answered, but it's on my list, so I'm asking it.
Okay. I'm here.
Looking back, how instrumental was your military service in shaping who you are today as a legal professional?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely instrumental. I mean, in every aspect of my life,
Yeah,
it's instrumental, right? I don't think when I joined, I fully realized what I was going to get out of the military. And not only that, but continuing relationships with people. I'm sure you can relate to that too, where you're in basic and there's people you did that with. Then you're in your units and there's people you do that with, and you go through these things together that are very unique and different. And you don't lose touch with a lot of those people. You stay in touch. You check in on them. When something happens to one of them, you know about it right away, right? It's a
right.
network of people, and we're there for one another. So if something happens or one of us needs something, we're there to help each other. And that's kind of a unique thing that has changed who I am, I think, as a person.
I just think it makes you more, helpful, more helpful, like seeking
Yeah.
that out and a more of a giving, grateful individual having gone through what you've gone through, right? And
Yeah.
you appreciate people more. I think it makes you more human.
Yep. That's been your experience too, I assume?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I always told people like being in the Marine Corps, I was in 6 years being in the Marines. I learned more about people, other people than anything else. And it was the best college for me. I mean, that's what I tell. I never went to college. I went in the Marines, and
Yeah.
then I got right out of the Marine Corps. I went to a software company and started selling software, and
Yeah.
did really well. I was a guy that put software on the shelf at CompUSA, and had a lot of brands there, but no,
Yeah.
and it was good stuff. It was a good time.
Yeah.
Good
That
time.
all informed what you're doing now, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's all what built up to. But this started as a hobby, honestly. I wasn't like, I'm going to build websites for lawyers, No, I was doing it for whatever company I was working for. And, but it was a hobby and it was all like hard coded, you had to write the code.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's like we were talking about earlier, right? If you're coming out of the military and you're trying to figure out what to do with your life, look at what you're doing outside of work, right? What's your hobby? Yours was that. And look what you turned it into. Something amazing, your own business.
It's true, and I wish I'd recognized it at the time, when I got out, because I guess I kind of did, because I went to work for a tech company. It was a translation software company, so I
Mhm.
went to go work for it. But you know, and my skills that I learned in the Marines in database management and code work that translated into stuff at Global Ink and the rest. Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah,
But I
it's
never
awesome.
thought that I would start my own business. My God. Ben Glass is responsible for that. He's the one that forced me to do it.
That's
I blame
great.
him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we need those people, right?
Yeah,
We need those.
exactly. That's what he does. It's one of the great things that Ben does is he gets people to do what they're supposed to do or do what they set out to do,
Yeah,
and gives them the gumption to do it,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the belief in themselves.
Absolutely.
Okay,
So, go ahead. Sorry.
what is the biggest mistake when it comes to marketing and the business of your law firm?
Oh, that one's easy, and it's something that you always talk about, really, which is you've got to make the time to do that part of the business, right? The marketing part. And I remember in the beginning hearing you talk about that and Ben Glass and thinking, okay, yeah, I'm definitely going to do that and writing it down. I've got to make sure I budget the time. And I'm pretty good about scheduling my day. I even tried to use the calendar to make it work, but it's very difficult in practice because you've got your clients. And maybe it is more difficult for me because I'm a solo right now. Maybe when you have staff, it becomes a little easier to manage. But finding the time to do that is challenging because always got customers or clients who have emergencies and they need something tomorrow. And you thought on Friday you were going to do a marketing day, which is kind of what I thought I was going to do. And I would do it, but then it would always become overcome by events. That's the greatest challenge, is just budgeting that time
Yeah.
and the ability to do it, especially if you have a family and other things going on. So getting to that point, scaling, being able to integrate that, very challenging.
Yeah. And, paying attention to everything in marketing is way more complicated now. There's a
Mhm.
lot of things going on. There's a lot of things you have to pay attention to. And many lawyers, as you well know, think all they have to do is say, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to get plenty of business because of my name. I'm going to do a good job and everybody's going to come to me because I'm so good.
Yeah,
And it just doesn't work that way.
no.
You might get a lot of calls for it, but they're probably, most of them are not the people you're looking for that you want to work with,
Mhm.
right? Like that's
Absolutely.
you have a specific niche, right, that you work with. Is it so let me ask this, in your private practice, do you work with veterans and do you work with, is that your focus or is it anybody?
Yes, it is. It's anybody, but our focus and our marketing is all oriented towards
Right.
military, their families, retirees, and then what we call it all public servants, right? So police, FBI, first responders, and even government contractors from the field I came from. The SAICs and Leidos and Northrop Grumman, all these companies are filled with people who are ultimately serving the federal government, either the intel agencies or DOD, DIA, all of these alphabet soup government agencies that have either as their purpose national defense or supporting the military in some way or the intelligence community. That is who we want to help and serve because we're familiar with that crew of people, right?
Yeah.
And even in the small business area, for example, this is an area where I think we have a sort of a niche interest, which is a lot of people in all of these areas, the military, they get out of the military or they come out of the federal contracting world or whatever. What they want to do is start their own consulting business. And so they start thinking about, how do I start my own business? And they go and look for a lawyer to help them do that. And what do they come across? They come across the big firms who charge their normal rates, which are really high and are unsustainable for a person who is just thinking about, how do I start and stand up and begin as a business. So what we do is we fill that gap for those communities. We charge a very reasonable rate to do all of the work of standing up their business for them, explaining to them all the risks and pitfalls in that, so that they have adequate asset protection. They're not exposing their personal assets to liability for the business they just created, which is a huge problem, by the way. So we get them through all of that, and we charge them a very reasonable rate to do that, with the hope that they'll trust us and continue to come back to us as they grow as a business. We can do their contracts and all of their in-house counsel work for them. So that's a model we
Wow.
love and really helps that community.
Wow. But that means that you're very focused. I mean, and you're only going to work with a certain amount and certain types of clients, right?
Yeah, we do truly work with any clients, even if they don't have that background. And frankly, a lot of people have that background because if it's not them, their dad was in the Army. And if your dad
Right.
was in the Army, I'm going to help you. Right.
Right.
So it's a broader network than it might seem. And even people who come to us and say, "Oh, I've got no affiliation." I mean, they wouldn't say that, but people who come and don't have an affiliation, we still will
You still help.
serve those clients. We just want, really, it's more of a marketing thing. We want the community that I just mentioned. We want them to know that we're here for them and that we love serving them.
Very good. So I think you already answered once again, what is the best thing you did from a marketing perspective that had the most significant impact on the growth of your law firm?
I don't think I have answered that one. And I'm being honest here. This is not just a plug. It's you guys at Foster Web Marketing. And meeting Chad was a game changer for me because I just mentioned it's hard for me to really put all the time in that I should be. And it's still a goal and I'm working toward it, but I don't have that time. But even if I don't do anything, the Foster Web Marketing website that you guys have put up for me is doing so much in the background that I'm constantly getting clients through it. It took a little while, after I built it and put it up. Obviously, it takes some time for that to filter through. But after a little while, I started to get clients and then more and more. And I would say on a almost daily basis now, something's coming through my website in terms of a new client. And what's really nice is you help me market to the clients that I want. So I'm getting clients who are responding to the marketing that you've instructed me to do to reach out to those avatar or ideal clients that are in prior service or whatever background that we're looking for.
Well, thank you for saying that, but it's also a testament to you because you take the advice and you do it as best you can with the time that you have. And you come to Academy, you're continue to learn and get better, right? That's what you got to do.
Yeah, and those are great opportunities. Those academies and the training centers and sessions that you guys have are invaluable. They really are.
Yeah.
They helped me learn, how to write. The one you had recently, a few months back, went into AI and how you can implement AI into your articles and into your practice in a way that generates value. And we've done that, and it's really been great. It's helpful, very helpful.
I use AI every day for something. It's fantastic. It's just like having a great little assistant there. And
it really is. And people talk too much about how there's, plagiarism and people are using AI to do work that they should be doing themselves. But it's not really about that. It's more about helping to generate ideas or expand on ideas that you have. You may think of an idea and it helps you to just think about it a little bit more. You can put in these cues and get some more information, and then you run with that and develop something based off of that. It is, like you said, just a very helpful assistant.
Yeah, agreed. 100%. Well, thank you for your kind words. And thank you, Jack Grimes, for being on this podcast, a special Veterans Edition. Is there anything else that you'd like to say or to add to this?
No, I just, for those who are out there who are veterans and might be watching this and thinking about starting their own business, please let us help, both Foster Web Marketing and us at Guidon Legal. We're here to help you. And even if we can't help you, we'll find a way to get you the help that you need. So thank you all for your service who are out there listening.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Jack. You are a unique guy and a wonderful man. I remember when we were building your website, Gretchen Upright ran into my office and said, I think I've talked to the nicest man that we've ever worked with.
That's very nice. Thank you.
Yes.
She's great, by the way.
This is a testament to you. She retired. She's gone. Gretchen's she's great, but I don't get to see her anymore. She's off running around the world. Good for her.
Yeah, good for her.
Okay, buddy. Well, thank you so much. And everybody, it's been the World of Marketing Veterans Edition with Jack Grimes and Tom Foster. I appreciate you. I appreciate you, Jack. And we will talk to everybody very soon. Thank you so much.